Hey, good morning, team. It is Tuesday, June 25th. I'm Amy Core. I'm back again with Kevin Van Eck.
Once again.
And we're at the Goose Island office with some really nice coffee this morning.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious. What do you have in your coffee?
Mine? Iced coffee.
Is it real coffee?
It's iced coffee.
Is there anything else in there?
Yeah, this is not coffee. I'm not allowed to drink coffee. Hot drinks right now.
This would have been his 10th cup had he had it.
Yeah,
Yes.
100%.
At
Yes.
7:50 a.m.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right, so this episode is about exactly that, being curious. We're going to talk with you about how being curious can really help in your business moving forward with all the stuff that we've been seeing. So on that note, we are curious what's in your cup. Make sure you fill it up, and let's jump into the next episode of Coffee with Amy and Kevin.
Let's do it. Good morning, Amy. Good morning, everyone. I like how you tied in
Did
the
you like
questions
that?
to asking me about what's in my cup.
Yeah.
I felt like an interrogation, though, so maybe you should practice.
Uh-oh.
I don't
Practice.
know. No.
Ooh.
So the idea is with this asking questions, right? So I was watching clips online, and I saw this Ted Lasso episode, right?
By the way, let's just all say who does not love Ted Lasso.
For
one
sure.
of the best shows ever.
I know it's
Yep.
one of your favorites. It's
Oh my
such
gosh.
a great show.
Learn
it's a
so many
feel-good
things.
show. Yes. A lot of good takeaways for life, right?
Yeah.
And this is one of them where it applies to life and our business.
Yeah.
And so the episode was where Ted's playing darts in a bar, and there was a bet, and I won't tell you the whole episode. Google it, Ted Darts Bar, and it'll come up. But essentially what it was is,
You know, Rupert, guys have underestimated me my entire life. And for years, I never understood why. It used to really bother me. But then one day, I was driving my little boy to school, and I saw this quote by Walt Whitman. It was painted on the wall there. It said, "Be curious, not judgmental." I like that. So I get back in my car, and I'm driving to work, and all of a sudden, it hits me. All them fellas that used to belittle me, not a single one of them were curious. You know, they thought they had everything all figured out, and so they judged everything, and they judged everyone. And I realized that they're underestimating me. Who I was had nothing to do with it. Because if they were curious, they would ask questions. You know? Questions like, have you played a lot of darts, Ted? Which I would have answered, yes, sir. Every Sunday afternoon at a sports bar with my father from age 10 till I was 16 when he passed away.
so the point being is that asking questions is really important because otherwise you don't have context for the rest of the conversation or the perspective that someone else has. And Ninja teaches the Socratic method, and that's a way to teach through asking questions and learning through asking questions. And that the best way to guide your clients is by knowing where they're coming from through asking questions. So that's the focus of today. We have 3 scenarios.
We do.
Where you need to learn the questions, practice them so that you can improve your business, improve your skills.
Yeah, I actually remember that episode. And the other thing about it, too, was that, again, without ruining any of it, but part of it was the ego aspect, right? Because the person on the other side was so confident and had
Yes.
so much ego in a certain way that they didn't even think to care to ask questions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I bring that up is sometimes our own ego gets in the way, and or it's our confidence or lack thereof. So, you know, it doesn't matter how well you know somebody or how well you even think you know a scenario with a client or somebody that you're talking to. It's kind of making sure we put our ego in check, because this really is about them, right? And the
That's right.
more that we can be curious about them, because at the end of the day, they're making a decision on who's going to make them feel good, right?
Yep.
And so I think the first area that we're all working on right now is having conversations around the settlement, right? That's been a big point of topic since, you know, last year, but even more importantly, since March. And, you know, I think sometimes we're so nervous about having those conversations because it's kind of new ground for all of us, right? But I think the best approach is exactly this. Instead of being defensive, instead of having our ego come in as if we have all of the answers and we have to, you know, tell a client everything that they need to know, let's take a step back. Let's be curious when the lawsuit or the settlement comes up, when you're having a conversation, whether it's at, you know, an upcoming 4th of July party, whether it's at a listing presentation. You know, instead of just spouting out everything you think they need to know, ask them, well, what do you know and what have you heard? And let that guide your conversation, because you have all the answers. You understand your value. You know why the situation has presented itself. And you're going to be able to respond to actually, in my mind, like what's most important to the client, right?
Exactly.
And what I'm finding is that some agents are realizing they're spouting off and saying all of these things that a client didn't even really know or understand, or it doesn't even really pertain to them. So step one, being curious as it relates to, the settlement, what your clients or potential clients or people in your sphere know or are interested in, and ask that question, because it's going to then guide you to give them what they really want.
That's right. Otherwise, you create confusion.
Yeah.
Right? If you're just spouting things
Or
off.
fear.
Fear.
Unnecessarily something fearful.
And I feel like the defensive piece is big too, because a lot of times we want to convey our value so hard that it comes off as defensive against whatever they've read in the media, but we don't know what they've read or what they've
And
heard.
I think just putting ourselves in their shoes.
Yes.
Let's take ourselves out of our space for a second. If we had heard that and we were thinking about a big, transaction or something related to real estate, and I'm not sure about what all of this means, who am I going to ask? A real estate professional that I trust. And I'm relying on that real estate professional to not be defensive, but just help me understand, right? I think
Right.
that's pretty critical.
As a consumer, if I read I could save 10% when I go to list my property after a certain date,
Yeah,
of course I'm interested.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't I be?
Yeah.
Even though it's misinformation. So that's
Right.
where we come in.
right.
So I think the second scenario or a situation where you want to make sure that you're curious and asking questions is during the listing presentation.
Yes.
And speaking of coming in and just laying on your value, a lot of times we want to come in and say everything we're going to do for that seller, essentially solve a problem without knowing the problem.
Yeah.
So this is where you need to ask a lot of questions to understand what they want, what their goals are, and some things about the home too. So I think the first question that's really important is, how did your last experience in real estate go? How did describe your last transaction? Because that'll give you context for what's important, where potentially their previous agent had failed and didn't create success, things that didn't go smoothly, so you know how to communicate with them in the future and how you're going to service them.
Yeah.
Another great question, I think, is when we're talking about the home is where, when you're talking about the home, it's really where do you think there are some challenges we might have in selling? And you brought up something earlier, which is really great. This comes from Ninja as well, where you said if they say it, they own it. So if you say, what are some challenges we might have in selling the home, and they say it's outdated, they said it. You didn't have to tell them.
Yep.
And the last question is, and this is something that comes from the Ninja listing process as well, and I think this is so powerful. If you've done everything possible up to this point to differentiate yourself, there's a soft close opportunity where you can say, based on what you've seen, do you feel like I'm qualified to market your home?
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that because again, you're teeing with asking questions, you're really teeing them up. And I love how you talked also about when they say it, they own it, right? Then the onus is on them to really provide the answer that then you two together, agent and seller are going to figure out how to navigate together, which I
Right.
think is so critical. I love it. And, in the listing presentation, I do think a lot of agents tend to go in out of the gate and just want to say everything that they can do,
Yes.
right? Before really being curious enough to find out also, like, what is their motivation? Because everybody's motivation could really be different. A lot of times it's price, but it could be timing or, other things. So, that's a big piece where I think sometimes agents have to take a step back. And it's hard for us, right? Because
Yes.
we want to kind of jump in and be able to, display all the
Wow
things that we
them.
do, extremely well.
Yeah.
And I think, the other component of that when you're in the listing presentation is going to be the pricing conversation, right?
sure.
A lot of times being able to ask them, where they value their home. What price do you think? What do you have an idea of what you would like to list your home at? And I know sometimes sellers do say, well, that's why I have you coming in, and that's
Right.
okay. But the other thing is that maybe they do have something in mind, and maybe they can give you some insight into where their headspace is at. The other thing that I like to often do when it comes to pricing, if they sort of push back there, is even asking them whether or not they've seen their Zestimate. And
Right.
usually I would go into a pricing conversation at least knowing where that's at, because we know they can kind of be all over the board. But if they've seen their Zestimate, odds are they are using that as some sort of anchor in kind of where their headspace is at, right?
Right.
But again, asking questions, finding out what they know. Also being able to say things, I love this one, rank your house on a scale of 1 to 10. 10 being amazing, 1 being like, whoa, we got a whole lot of work to do,
Tear down.
right?
Yep.
You're again giving them the power because when they say it, they own it. When they say it's a 5, you didn't say it was a 5. They did. And then you can follow up and say, okay, well, if it's a 5, what are some of the things you think, would need to be done in order to get it to a 10, right? Or if you were to stay here for another 3 to 5 years, what are some of the things you think you would do? Again, they are owning the fact that their house maybe isn't perfect and that whoever's coming in there with their lens, right? Those things that they're saying out loud and owning right now are going to be the reasons why we price it where we need to, right?
Exactly.
So asking questions can be really powerful. If you haven't yet, maybe refresh yourself taking a look at the Ninja guide to all the listing questions. It's also great in this market right now when we're working with buyers and we are starting to talk about doing these buyer consultations, right? And making sure Ninja, again, has a great list of questions. So instead of saying, I'm amazing, we're really kind of honing in on learning more about the client, right? Being curious.
Yeah, it frames it. And like you said, if they say it, they own it. You don't need to be the one to tell them it's outdated if they already told you. You don't need the one to tell them it's not going to sell at a 10 price if they told you it's a 7.
Yep.
So asking questions, I think one of the things with the questions, there's 2 pieces. One is you really have to practice them.
We talking about practice, man.
Yeah.
Because some of the questions we talked about have the potential to come off aggressive if it's not delivered in the right way.
Yep.
So practicing it is really important. And the second piece is don't be afraid. Practice is also going to help you have confidence when asking questions. So I know agents sometimes don't want to ask about this estimate or they don't want to ask what the seller thinks of their price because they're afraid of the answer.
Yeah.
What seller hasn't already looked up their estimate?
Right.
By the time they're thinking about selling, they know what's out there. So you're not bringing up anything new. But this way, if you address it, now you're drawing it out before they have objections.
Yeah.
You can address it ahead of time. So questions have a lot of benefits. These are all things you need to practice, really practice and insert into your process. Because what it's going to do is it's going to attract buyers and sellers to you. It's going to allow you to capture all those opportunities because you're able to frame your conversation around what they told you.
Yep. So find a friend, grab a cup of coffee, and try it, right? All right, well, we hope you found this information this Tuesday valuable. We'd love to hear any feedback, so share it with us. Make it a great Tuesday until we see you next time. Remember, Kevin,
You got this.
clink or no clink?
Clink.
All right.